are my spiritual gifts? This is a question that I have been receiving a lot from people recently. They are wanting to activate their soul mission, connect to deeper levels of their multidimensionality, and help the collective consciousness on a more expansive level. And so for that reason, I have decided to offer this as a specific service where I connect them with your Akashic records, your higher self, and your different incarnations to let you know about one of your spiritual gifts and ways to develop it. I have 7 spaces available over the next 2 weeks, and so if you'd like to learn more about these activations, you can check the description box below or the comments. And if you want to see others' summaries of their readings, you can stay tuned because those will be coming up next. I'm going to share something that I just learned in somebody's Akashic records, which absolutely blew my mind, and I did not know that we were able to do. Just us as a collective. So if you want to maybe unlock something within your records, this will be for you. So before I connected with her on Zoom, I went into her field to see if there was any incarnations that wanted to come forward to support her in this one, and one did. And I met her on a cloud and I was like, where are we? And she said, we're in Atlas, and it's a planet that's outside of this galaxy, and they had a sky city. I said, oh, are you from here? And she said, no, I astral projected here. She said, this is my kind of second home. And I said, oh, cool. And she handed me a compass to look at, and all of a sudden I went into the compass, and then we were in London in the 1970s. And she took me to her flat and her apartment, and she asked if I would go to her room with her. And when I did, it had all these crystals and plants, very metaphysical-esque, and she asked me to sit with her. And so we were sitting face to face, and she said, hold out your hand, and she put a coin inside of it, and she said, close it and shake it up. I said, okay. And then I opened it back up, and she said, I want you to look at the coin. What do you see? And I was like, I just see a coin. And she said, no, I want you to look deeper into it. So I closed my eyes, and I heard a dog barking, and then I was in a field, and I saw a farmer, and he was holding this pitchfork, and he was looking out over his farm, and he was just so proud, and he was watching his dog. And then I jumped back into the room with her, and when I am figuring out people's spiritual gifts for them, oftentimes I'm serving as a energy body to figure out what those are. So this version of her, this different incarnation, was saying that she has the ability to pick up objects that hold memories within them. Not people that she knows even. She can do that with people that she knows, but just anything that holds memories within it. And she's able to astral project to places and spaces within time, okay, within history. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. And it far extends past that. Okay, so she said that her gift was psychometry. It's clairtangency, and a lot of psychic mediums are able to hold items from persons who have passed on to the other side and look through their memories and tell clients information about them, right? She said that all of these items that have been held create energetic coordinates within the memories, especially if there's a strong emotion with them, and you can actually ride the wave of the memory and then astral project into that person's, history. Okay, so time traveling. And she said it's not just with objects though. She said that she could go to the library or go to the bookstore and find an autobiography by somebody. It has to be an autobiography, and I'll explain why. But you can find an autobiography. You don't even have to read it. You just hold it in your hands, and then you can astral project to different places that author has been. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. The reason that it would have to be an autobiography is because if somebody else was reading or wrote the book about somebody, then you would be reading the memories of the person that wrote the book. That's not the actual person themselves. So I use Jane Goodall, for example, because she has an autobiography, the woman that worked with the primates. If you got that book and then you meditated with it, she can go to all these different places that Jane had been to. But if she was utilizing a book somebody else wrote about Jane, then technically she would be reading this other person's memories. So It gets even more wild than that. Different incarnations said it doesn't have to be with people from the past, though. You could do that with autobiographies now of people whom are living. This is where I was like, oh, whoa. So I told her that when she is astral projecting, it's with her energy body, right? Like, her body is going to stay in whatever room that she is in, but her energy fields will be there. However, her higher self said that she is able to show up to these persons in real time as a human being and speak to them as if she had a physical form. For example, she could go back in time and speak to Albert Einstein, and she would be speaking to him in a human form. And I said, isn't that kind of stepping on their free will? And she said, no. She said, because it would just be like if Albert Einstein ran into like a random person in his time and space. He could either speak to them or not. And then she gave me an example of somebody that she really looked up to, Matthias DeStefano, and he's like a spiritual guy. And I said, yeah, technically you could astral travel to go speak with him right now. Like, it would be like if y'all were meeting in a coffee shop and you're like, hey, I know who you are. And if he wanted to speak to you, he could. And if not, that's okay too. Her higher self said that she could also go to the future. That we needed to start with current or the past, though, because it's more tangible for our human to experience. And the future is unknown because it's unwritten, but technically it's not, because everything is happening all at one time. But that's what Nikolai Tesla was doing. He was astral projecting in the future and bringing back information to the here and now. And so what was really wild to me was her higher self was saying that that happens now. That there are persons who are not an actual physical form that are astral projecting through time and space and who are speaking to us, and they're not actually in a physical human form. They're actually from somewhere else and they're astral projecting. And I was like, whoa. Okay. And I just thought this was so cool because I haven't seen this before, of being able to hold an object. And she said the reason that objects are easier to start with is because they're dense, like dense matter being compressed, and it's easier to frequency read them. And when you have memories with emotions attached to them, it's a easier process. But I told her eventually she wouldn't have to use those. And what's even cooler than that is I said, okay, this cup is a cup in this incarnation, but it could be a alien, let's say a Syrian starseed in a different incarnation. I said, you could hold this cup and yes, read my memories off of it and astral project to places that I have been in this incarnation, but you could go even deeper with your reading and you could read the memories of the Syrian starseed that this was in a different incarnation, and then you could go to Sirius or wherever else that person has been in their travels, or that cup has been in their travels. And so I was saying, this is so cool, it's so expansive. And the reason I wanted to come on and share it is because if she can do it, other people can too. Like, these are all things that we can learn how to do. Some of us already have inherently these gifts and abilities. Sometimes we don't remember them. That's the session that we were doing together. She was like, hey, I feel like I might have some karmic lessons or some vows, something going on with my soul contract, spiritual gifts, soul mission I'm not able to see. And so I was able to, relay that information, but I was explaining to her at the same time, it's not really you learning how to do it. You already have that template within. You've already been doing this in other incarnations. Like that other one that came forward, like she already knew how to do it. They're one and the same soul. And I said, this incarnation is actually wanting to come forward and mentor you in it so that you can accelerate in this incarnation with the gift. But that also means that, other people are able to do this as well. So hopefully this unlocks something within your Akashic records or with your understandings. And if you would like to learn more about your spiritual gifts and how to utilize them, I do offer Akashic record readings to figure those things out. I also have the Quantum Evolution Academy, where you can learn how to become a new earth healer. And you can find all the information in my bio or in my comments. And I would love to hear if you had any insights come up while I was sharing these things, or if you feel like you have these abilities yourself. I want to tell you about this really cool spiritual gift that I found in somebody's Akashic records, because this might come up for you as well, or if you are giving sessions to clients. Before I connect with my clients over Zoom, I always sit in meditation for about 20 minutes prior to see if there's anything that their higher self or their inner children or different incarnations want to show me. And my client specifically wanted to talk about inner child healing. So when I went into her energy field, I was taken to a pasture, if you will, and there was a tree stump and a little girl was sitting there, and she was 8 years old. And I walked over to her and I said, hey, and I was explaining who I was, and I asked her if she wanted to have a tea party, and she said yes. And so we sat down on the ground with one another, and there's all these stuffed animals with little teacups, and I said, watch this, and I snapped my fingers and all of the little animals turned into real ones, and she was super excited. And I asked her if there was anything that she wanted to talk about, that she was feeling or that was unprocessed. She said, no, I'm okay. All right. And as we continued our tea party, a crow walked over to us, and I said, who is that? And she said, that's Albert. I said, okay, is Albert one of your guides? And she said, I don't know, he's always been here. And I said, okay. And as we continued talking, I saw this figure that was standing in the woods next to this pasture, and she was watching us. And I said, who is that? Because she was giving very much Maleficent vibes, very kind of dark energy, long black dress. She had horns and wings. And she said, oh, that's Mildred. Great. Who is Mildred? And she said, oh, she hangs out here. It's okay. So I said, maybe I'm here to talk to Mildred, because oftentimes when I'm going into people's energy fields, different incarnations will come forward to either help the client with something, or they'll ask me to help them with something. And so she walked over and I started talking to her, and I could see that she was protecting my client's inner child. And I was explaining to this different incarnation why I was there, and she wanted to vet me, if you will. And sometimes inner children have protectors like this, and they will kind of run you through a screening process. And so I handed her my Akashic record portfolio, if you will, and she said, okay, you check out. And I said, is there anything that you need support with? And she said, I don't know if you're going to be able to help me with anything. And I said, okay, can you help my client with anything? And she said, yes. And so all three of us started walking into a different part of the energy field, and we were in a castle. It was kind of dark in there, and we're walking around. I said, something is not right in here. Something is off. And I turned to her little girl inside and I said, hey, you don't have to be scared. I'm coming in here to help us feel better and help us learn things about ourselves, and also to help the adult version of you in her life, which you can help her with things. Even though you're a little girl, you have a lot of magic and knowledge and wisdom to share. I said, would you like to go somewhere fun? And I took her to the rainbow dimension, and there's an amusement park there that inner children can go and play, and it's sparkly and all these different rides, and she was really excited. And I said, Mildred and Albert are not real, are they? She said, no, they're not. I said, girl, you have some really strong imaginative powers. What she had done was projected those beings into existence and has been pouring so much energy into them and her own consciousness that me as a reader was picking up on them as a completely different incarnation when they were more of an illusion. And I said, they were very, very real. I said, you almost got me. And she was like, okay, you got me. I said, yeah. I said, I know that you have them in here to protect you because some things happened when you were younger where you needed to do that. And once me and the client actually met on Zoom and I told her all these things, she said, yes, she had a very overbearing, controlling, domineering mother, and her father wasn't really available in the ways that she needed, and her brother was also just crossing her boundaries a lot, you know, just normal sibling things, but just didn't feel very empowered as a child. And I said, sometimes our inner children will give birth to these different protectors within ourselves, but this is the first time that one was so real that I mistook it for a different incarnation. And I said, your little girl inside has impressive imaginative abilities. She would be so good at creating characters. If you want to write a book or a screenplay, those characters would resonate with people on incredibly deep levels. And she said, yeah, I had a really amazing imagination when I was a child. I was always playing pretend and writing these amazing stories in school, and my teachers were always praising me for how curious I was and the things that I would come up with. And he said, yeah, how this can apply to you in this incarnation right now is you can work with that little girl inside. And Maleficent is a type of archetype. She is a dark feminine energy that is a sorceress. She's very confident. Sometimes she's misunderstood. And I said all these different ascended masters and ethereal beings, let's say Kali, Archangel Michael, whomever you want to work with, Lord Ganesh, they're archetypes that you can channel and embody their energetics. And the more time that you spend with them, the more your personality traits will start to reflect theirs. I said, you can do that with this little girl inside and throw these kind of tea parties if you want, or however you want to interact, and really make these shifts within your persona to the version of yourself that you want to embody. And on top of that, our imagination plus emotions is how we manifest. She is a very, very powerful manifester. And so if there's things that you're wanting to bring into your life, ask her, because we have to feel these things as real and as if they are happening in the current moment in order to have it reflected outside of us. I said she can make it very solidified and actualize that into the material world if you start manifesting with her. I said, these are incredible gifts. I said, I have seen where inner children have created these illusions before, but this is the first time that I could not read that it was an illusion. And so I wanted to share this in case you go into your own records or you go into another person's, whether it's a client, a family member, or a friend, asking ourselves when these different archetypes come forward, these different guides, and you have an inner child that's connected to it, why is this person here? How are they helping you? And just doing a little bit more discovery around those areas, because I knew that there was something that she needed to talk about, because obviously she called me in there to come and have the tea party with her. And yes, she probably wanted to have fun, but there's always something more deeply rooted underneath that needs to be looked at. And because my client had that relationship with her mother, and then she wasn't feeling seen, heard, and validated, she created this Maleficent character to, one, take care of her as a little girl, but also protect her and speak for her. Right? So that's why I had to go through that Maleficent character in order to be able to work these things out with the inner child inside. And so I would love to hear if this resonated with you, if it helped you have some perspective shifts. And if you want to learn how to read your own Akashic Records or do Akashic Record readings with other persons, inner child healing sessions, become a new earth healer, I would love for you to join me in the Quantum Evolution Academy. You can check that out in my bio, in the comments, or the description box below. And I hope you have a super magical day. I am so excited to share a spiritual gift that I found inside of my client's Akashic Records, and I want to share it with you in case it unlocks and activates something within your templates as well. When I went into her field, I was taken to a river, and it had a lot of rocks in it, and the river was representative of her Akashic Records. It looks different for everybody, and it can look different upon the context of what you're perceiving it as well. It can ebb and flow, which is funny with the river reference, but in this this context, it was a river and all of the rocks represented her different incarnations. And so I picked one up and looked at it, and her higher self told me that she is incredibly clairsentient. This is the psychic sense of feeling, of sensations. Then I was shown a Olympic torch, and the reference was because her higher self was trying to get me to see Greece. And then all of a sudden we were on Mount Olympus, and Demeter came forward, and she had worked with Demeter in the past, different incarnation, and she told me that she was a watcher, a purveyor, and a caretaker. And I said, oh, that's amazing. I said, can I actually talk to the different incarnation? And she said yes. And then she came forward and she said, I have my notes here, she said she needs to listen to the tones of the earth. Everywhere you step, there is a different vibrational resonance, and she is able to read through the layers of the earth. I said, oh, what does that mean? And so basically, when I am reading people's Akashic records, it works in a layeral system. There's you in the present, you in the future, then you have your younger versions, your teenagers, your inner children, and then we are able to get into the different incarnations that are a vaster existence of your multidimensionality. And so her higher self was saying that she could stand in different places on earth and read the layers down throughout history. And so a year, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, all of the plants, animals, people, building, anything that has been in that one space that she is standing, kind of like a pillar of knowledge that runs to the crystalline core, and that she is able to read the different frequencies and the information coming forward from the pillars. And this is a gift that I have not seen before. I'm very excited to talk about it. So, excuse my rudimentary drawing. Let's envision that this is her. If she walks over to this space, there is a 3-foot radius around her, which she is able to create that pillar to the crystalline core. Then she can walk over another 3 feet and another 3 feet and another 3 feet and do the same thing, getting different information. And if she were to do that in a complete circle like this around her, then she can actually link them all together and create sacred geometry, which more in particular a Merkaba, but many different types of sacred geometry. That's just one, but most everybody knows what a Merkaba is. And I don't know if you've ever seen those giant balls that people can get in. They look like human-sized hamster balls, and people can run across the water on them. She can actually lift that sacred geometry up out of the ground by pulling the energy of all of these layers of history, create a 3D sacred geometry around her. And when people come into her field, just walking near her, we have all soul contracted to work with and help certain people during this incarnation, whether you're consciously aware or not. It's already been soul aligned. And so everyone who comes in contact with her that has given permission to her higher self for these upgrades and activations will receive them. So in the hamster ball, in the sacred geometry, I saw tons of data that was running through it, kind of like in the Matrix where you see all of it coming down really quickly. And what all of those data points are doing are linking with the other person's DNA. And I was having a conversation with another energy healer the other day, and we were saying that oftentimes people have a difficult time pulling down esoteric knowledge and wisdom and these higher planes of existence because their DNA is not in congruence with the New Earth paradigm, because they're still working through trauma and PTSD or self-limiting beliefs, false illusions, not just from this incarnation, but other incarnations, or when they're younger, it creates all these filters, and they're not able to receive at their full totality these things that are multidimensionally expansive. And so my client with this hamster wheel of knowledge is able to link in with their DNA and upgrade and activate it to a point where they are getting blasted with all of this information about Earth's history from being pulled up and creating this vortex. And very quickly, they are given all these data points that show them all of the things that are not in congruence with the New Earth paradigm, whether that's beliefs, PTSD, trauma, behavioral patterns, all these things that we need to shed in order to ascend. And so they are able to work through these things at an accelerated pace because now their DNA is primed for that. And it's not only negative things that are be carrying in her field, it's also all of these wonderful, positive, amazing things that have happened throughout Earth's history that they are learning from as well. And the really cool thing is, once she gets deeper into this gift, she is going to be able to astral project to different planetary systems and do the exact same system with different beings throughout the cosmos. So let's say that she goes to Venus. She can walk around and create these pillars, pull up that sacred geometry, encode the data points, walk around with the Venusians, and be able to give them upgrades and activations as well. Oftentimes when we're getting these really expansatory gifts, it's like, how the heck do I even do this? And I told her, we're not going to overanalyze or overthink it. It's one step at a time. Something that would be beneficial is literally going outside, envisioning that 3-foot parameter around you, getting out a piece of paper and a pen, asking Mother Gaia to help guide you, and just seeing what comes through from the history of that pillar, whether it's people, places, events, animals that have been there, and then move to another section, and then another section, and then another section. And once you have created this full circle, you can simply envision sacred geometry and imagine pulling it up from the earth over you and creating that data vortex and linking all of the information together. It simply starts with you sitting in one space and channeling and then going to another space. It doesn't always have to be outside, because technically if you're in your apartment or your home, you can still create a pillar that goes all the way down because the house or the apartment hasn't been there forever. You can even astral project into different times and spaces throughout history into this. It doesn't even have to be here in this one currently. It could be in the 1800s, it could be in the 3000s, and also be doing this. Her higher self said because clairsentience is such a prevalent gift for her, working near water is going to be a great amplifier, working with trees and in the vicinity of mountains. Learning about the Akashic records, because this is a type of Akashic work of being able to read timelines, and also with your Earth Star chakra that is located a foot underneath your feet and connects you to the crystalline core and the heart of Mother Gaia, and helps you connect in to your soul mission, why you decided to incarnate here during this time. And obviously she had worked with Demeter in the past, who was bringing this gift up in the first place, and this other incarnation of hers, and so connecting with them and asking for tutelage would also be very beneficial. And so I would love to hear in the comments if this resonated with you as well, if it helped activate and open up your perceptual awareness. And I hope you have a super magical day. I'm going to tell you about this really amazing spiritual gift that I found within my clients' Akashic records, and I'm going to share it with you in case it helps open up and activate something within your templates as well. I went into his energy field. I saw this big being, human-esque type of person, if you will, and he had a star in his hand. So you have to envision, he was very magnanimous, okay, in order to be able to hold a star in his hand, and he crushed it and it turned into dust. And I was like, what are you doing? He's giving Thanos energy over here. And he said this star was on its last breath at the end of its incarnation, and he was making it smaller into this finite energy in order to rematerialize it. And I asked, well, why are you doing that? And all of a sudden we went to this laboratory, and he was dressed as a kind of like medical professional, if you will, and he said that he was a star geneticist. And I was like, I've never heard of that before. And he said that this is a place in the cosmos where there is a team of people who have been selected to run this program, and basically what they do is they take planets and stars that are, again, at the end of their incarnations, and collect all of the energy and bring it to this place where people's higher selves or their oversouls come here, and they collect this energy, and it is infused into their DNA, into the incarnations that come after the oversoul, and so that people can remember their cosmic connections to these different places in space. The remembrances are passed down hereditarily, because he was saying that some planets are living in more rudimentary systems, and he utilized planet Earth as that. He said, y'all have forgotten about ancient magic and your connection to these things outside of planet Earth. And he said, now that the veil is thinning and people's perceptual awarenesses are really expanding, that there are going to be a lot of people who are waking up and remembering these things and are going to teach others. And so a lot of persons having their DNA activated right now, but that was already pre-wired into them from their higher selves and oversouls coming to this space. And these encodements that are in specific people's DNA, when these stars are crushed down into a more finite energy and put into people's systems, when they are reawakened to this information, it's creating a time capsule where someone will be able to astral project back to that time and space and be able to see the other planetary systems and stars as well that were surrounding that star or planet that collapsed, which will make it easier for people to portal jump through these systems because they have a recollection of all of the surrounding areas. He was saying that in this laboratory that they have a filing system that has information on billions of stars and planets, and that my client would be able to, when he gets deeper into channeling, be able to look through this incarnation's eyes at the files. So it's a form of remote viewing, and he can learn about them so that when he comes into contact with people on Earth, whether intentionally or not intentionally, because he can also just step into people's fields and activate them. But if he wants to give sessions or have talks about certain things, he can infuse these data points into the person's DNA sequencing, and so that they can remember either where they're from, or again, it will help them with astral traveling to these different places and spaces. So that way these travelers can go out and bring us on Earth information about things that are outside of our collective consciousness, like really advanced technology. In order to get into this gift, he was saying learning about starseed planets that we already know about is really beneficial if you are one of these astral projectors. So Lemuria, Sirius, the Pleiades. But he was saying that people already sometimes have a difficult time conceptualizing those to begin with. There are so many more places that you can access outside that nobody has information on right now. I have been into a couple people's Akashic records and have been to planets that nobody has information on. One of them was called Allendor, another Limneck, several different other ones. But it's more beneficial to start with planets or star systems that we have a lot of information on, because it's easier to conceptualize and astral jump to. Incarnation was also saying that he has co-workers, that's a very human terminology, but he has co-workers that work in this laboratory as well, and that my client, via connecting with him, would also be able to speak with them, and they have their own experiences and astral travels that they can teach him about. I was just sitting there like, wow, this is such an interesting gift. With taking these star bits and infusing them into people's DNA so they can have these remembrances and help them become these travelers throughout time and space to bring back knowledge and wisdom to planet Earth. That's incredible. And I wanted to share this as well because you, if you are listening to this and you resonate with this, most likely have these encodements within yourself. Learning about the different planetary systems, star systems, getting a little bit deeper into astronomy if you want to, or simply meditating with different planets. They can be Venus and Jupiter and Mars, and you know, if you want Moon, wherever you want to, that will kickstart your remembrances and activate these things within. And I would love to hear in the comments if this activated something within you, helped with your remembrances, or if you have any questions. And I hope you have a super magical day. I'm going to tell you about this really amazing spiritual gift that I found inside of my clients' Akashic records in case it unlocks and activates something within your templates as well. When I was connecting to her energy field, her energy body came forward and I was telling her who I was and asking her if there was anything that we needed to focus on to help my client in this incarnation. And she said, yeah, I want to show you something. And we went to this location, and as we were talking, all of a sudden we blipped to New Mexico. And we were, but it was like way back in the day, way back, and we were sitting there around this fire and we were cowgirls. And she said, okay, well, we got to get some good sleep because we got to hit the road in the morning. And I was like, okay. And then we went to Antarctica, and I had this coat on. I was like, girl, why are we here? I cannot stand the cold weather. And she said that I'm looking for artifacts. And at that point, she had switched into a different incarnation of herself. And I said, why are you looking for artifacts? And she said, to help people remember ancient civilizations and this cosmic knowledge, this esoteric wisdom. And I said, oh, that's really cool. Then she took me to this place that is like an intergalactic museum, which I have seen one time before in somebody else's records. And it's a place where they collect artifacts, but many other things. Think of it as like a Smithsonian, but of space. And it's from all these different planetary systems and dimensions and frequencies. And it's a place of learning because people come and they tour there. And I asked if she worked there, and she said, I'm a contractor. And so kind of, but she was very independent. She was telling me that at this museum, they host classes that teach beings how to astral project to different times and space by holding these different artifacts and learning about them. And I said, oh, that's really interesting. Are they able to interact in real time with the different timelines? And she said, no, these persons who are in these classes, we call them the observers. And it's simply so that they can learn more about that time and space, but they're not necessarily allowed to interact because that can really shift timelines. And some people are able to do that if you do type of like soul fragment healing, or if it's going to benefit a certain incarnation, but not necessarily just regular beings out here traversing and astral projecting. And I asked if she was able to do that, interact in real time, and she said, yeah, but that's not really my jam. I just collect the artifacts. And I was like, okay. She was giving very much kind of Indiana Jones. She was also telling me that my client could channel this gift. This is where we start to learn how to connect with these different incarnations and bypass a lot of 3D human learning that we would need to do when we can just get it from the source to begin with and channel the other incarnations' gifts from them. She was saying that my client could go into people's energy fields, find artifacts within their fields that they have come in contact with throughout their cosmic history, bring it forward to their attention, and that would be an easier way for them to portal jump to have contact with these other incarnations of themselves, because oftentimes it's a little bit difficult for people to conceptualize. But the example I was giving her was, let's say that somebody had an incarnation as a cowgirl in the like 1800s or something. What you might do is find this wheel on a wagon that represents that timeline, and that maybe that incarnation actually had tangible experiences with, and then you bring that forward to your client's attention, or your friend or family member, whomever you're reading for, and you say, hey, this is going to be an anchor point for that timeline, and when you interact with it, it's going to help you zap back to that time and space and either observe the timeline or actually interact with that different incarnation. Maybe they can help you with karmic healing or become a mentor or a guide for you, or they have messages for you. But it's almost like a portal device, these different artifacts. And the reason that it's easier to do that, she was saying, is because physical items are a lot denser and hold the energetics of time, and make it easier for you to be able to frequency read instead of just doing that as a conceptual theory, if you will. She was saying these are kind of baby steps to help you learn how to astral project. And so in order to expand this gift in this incarnation, she was saying that my client could go to an antique store and find something that resonates with her, that makes her feel good when she's holding it or looking at it, interacting with it. It doesn't have to be super expensive. It can be like a coin, or it can be a brooch that you wear, and take it home with you and start meditating with it and seeing what comes through with your channeling abilities, what you're able to perceive with clairvoyance or clairsentience, claircognizance, clairtangency, however that she wants to channel, or however she's most proficient in. Eventually, however, she would be able to see pictures of antiques, not actually hold them, and be able to read the energetic signatures from them and go in meditation and connect that way. And I said you could literally watch Antiques Roadshow if you want and pick up something that you would enjoy working with, and then bring it up in your mind and be able to astral project to that time and space wherever that antique came from. And even past that, I said you could go to this intergalactic museum as well and utilize the antiques that are there as well. And you would be able to travel to all of these different places throughout the cosmos with this same gift. And this is really something that anybody can learn how to do if you put time and energy into it, because that's not my most proficient gift, but I have definitely found artifacts like that within people's Akashic records to bring to their attention to make it easier for them to connect to these different incarnations, these different timelines. If I double down on it and spend a lot more time, I'd probably have that happen a lot more. But this is something that you can either do for yourself or you can learn how to do for other people. It's a type of timeline reading, timeline connection. You can also put in a request to go to the Intergalactic Museum. It's not for a select type of persons. It's for anybody that wants to be able to go there and learn about things through these artifact items. It's also applicable to her human experience. She wants to be an actress and write screenplays as well. And I said, how cool would it be if you go to this Smithsonian, this intergalactic Smithsonian, and you get inspired by all of the different things there, and you learn about all of these different persons who have had contact with these artifacts, and you can bring all of that information and knowledge back here and create a whole new realm, reality-scape, that nobody has ever thought of these things before, or seen them before, or heard about them. And it's quote-unquote fictional to the persons who are reading it, but you know these things are actually factual. And so it's going to resonate very deeply with people, opposed to something that's totally fictional. And you can even do this now in meditation with your higher self, or these different incarnations, and ask, hey, are there any artifacts that are within my field that can be brought to the forefront of my consciousness so that I can connect with these different timelines more easily? Or finding you some antiques to practice with, or just old items. And so I would love to hear in the comments if this resonated with you, if it unlocked anything activated, and if you have any more questions, I would love to hear those as well. And remember to give a follow if you want to hear more about these expansive spiritual gifts. I am super excited to tell you about this spiritual gift that I found inside of my client's Akashic records, in case it helps unlock and activate something within your templates as well. And we're going to go over some tips for astral projection. I went into her energy field. I saw her with a third eye that was not pointed this way, it was pointed this way, like up and down. And I touched it and I went deeper in, and I turned into a cat. And I was looking through its eyes, and I was like, what the heck is going on? And I'm looking around, and I am in an Egyptian priestess temple, and I saw her project out of the cat with her body and start walking around this temple. Later, the same thing happened, but we were in Spain, and I was the bull, and I was running through the streets. And then I saw her pop out of the bull as well and start walking around. I said, oh, you have the gift of being able to connect with animals, the consciousness of them, and be inside of their body in order to access these different times and spaces throughout history. I said, you've actually been working with animals for a very long time, because a question that might come up is, oh, was that stepping on their free will, the animals? And her higher self said, no, the animals have a choice to say yes or no. They're conscious, sentient beings, and so you can put in your request to them, and if they say yes, then you can access these different times and spaces through the animals as portals. She was asking me, well, how do I do that? How do I remember? And I said, okay, well, tell me what has been your current experiences on your awakening journey, specifically with astral projection as well. And she told me that when she was a child, that she saw some beings. She said the movie Hercules, where he has the mentor. He's like a centaur. His name is Phil. He's like the little character that is played by Danny DeVito, and he trains Hercules. She said that these beings that she saw when she was a child looked like that and scared her, and she didn't really have anybody to talk to about it, and ended up cutting off some of her spiritual gifts because of that. A little nervous about traversing through the ethers and what she's going to find and what she's going to see. And she was letting me know that every time that she went into meditation and she got in that state of being where it's almost like you're falling asleep, that's the perfect brainwaves to be in for astral travel. She said that it was always really dark in there, and that she would get really scared anytime that she walked up to the veil, the precipice points of moving into your astral or etheric body, and she would jump back into her physical and wake up, and she was too nervous to kind of step over that space, because what's going to happen, we don't know. It's the unknown out there. I said, okay, we have some PTSD and trauma in our body from those experiences in childhood, and we are holding cellular memories. And what we need to do is heal those things within us. And a way that you can do that, one, is you don't have to start out in the dark when you are accessing the ethers. Like, that's scary even for me in the human world, like being in a dark space. That's a physiology thing. I said, you can be anywhere that you want to be. You can start at the ocean, in the mountains, in unicorn land, wherever you feel safe and comfortable and that excites you. I said, ask your inner children, because they're going to give you some fantastical places to start, and it can be bright and sunny and beautiful. Also, the veil that you are attempting to walk through is also in the dark, because that portal to get into the ethers can look like anything too. It can be a jar full of glitter that you jump into, or you can spring off a trampoline, or have a magical elven door to open up and walk through. One of her main concerns was, once she gets on the other side, is what if I get lost? What if I cannot find my way back to my physical body? I said, I totally get that, because that was one of my fears when I first started astral projecting. And where are some safety measures that we can put in place for your inner children to help them find their way back? make it as silly goosey as you can. It can be a rope that you tie to your physical body. You can leave breadcrumbs like Hansel and Gretel if you want. You can create chalk art from where your physical body is throughout your travels in the ethers and then find your way back. You can do a fishing pole and hook your physical body in and slowly start unraveling that. And what we can do is when we go in meditation and we get in that state where it's akin to almost falling asleep, is walk 5 feet towards the veil or whatever portal that you're creating with your inner children, and then utilize that silly goosey tool and resource to get yourself back. Wake back up, open your eyes, and say, oh, I'm safe, we're okay. Notice how I was able to get us back to our physical body. Then you can work on 10 feet and 20 feet and 60 feet and then walking through the veil a little bit and then coming back. And every time you do that, it is going to instill more trust with you and your inner children that you will always get them back. It is also going to release that PTSD and trauma that has been built up in your central nervous system, and cellular memories were overriding that. I said that's probably why this spiritual gift is also coming forward at this time, because when you are going willy-nilly out into the ethers, it's like anything could happen. We could see anything or experience anything. Let's set some parameters. For her specifically, this is shifting into an animal's body, which animals are not scary. They're super sweet and fun and 3D and tangible. It's not like we're meeting some starseed being out there or a creature you've never seen before. This is a dog or a cat or a giraffe or a monkey that we can connect with. And we are only projecting into different times and spaces throughout human history. You can do this in the past, you can do it in the current, you can do it in the future. And so because you have those parameters of time in human history, it makes it a little less intensive of a feeling of just being out wherever in the cosmos. Great way to start connecting with animals like this is to do animal meditations. You can go on Google or on Tube and type in really any type of animal and it will come up. And you can either read about them or do a guided meditation to help your inner children feel safe with this type of magic and connection. And then when you feel a little bit more stable in those areas, you can ask those animals as well to go on those journeys of working your way towards the veil and feeling safe with that. I said, what is an animal that is really good at tracking? And she said a dog. And I said, yes. And so you could do a dog meditation and then ask that dog to go with you and your inner children on your journey through the veil. And so it can sniff its way back for you. Reminded her, you get to decide how you experience these things. Oftentimes we need somebody else showing us the capabilities that we were able to do, because she said, wow, that was so simple, all of these answers. I said, sometimes simple is the best. So I would love to hear in the comments if this gave you some new perspectives and it helped you open up and awake something within yourself as well. And I hope you have a very magical day.